Today I'm going to teach you how to paint this detailed mountain for your next nature painting. I hope you enjoy. So starting off, making a rough triangle with a lot of jagged edges to create that realistic mountain look. In the center we're going to be making that cliff edge. Just do a rough line, doesn't have to be perfect. So first up we're using a yellow ochre, making sure that it is a very dilute color. We just want to be getting down some of that natural tone without adding too much vibrancy here. We're going to be coming back in with a lot more color, but don't worry, just start off with a light color. And then we're going to be adding the blue-gray on the opposite side where it's going to be a little bit more of the shadow. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just making sure that you're filling those pencil marks so that we can see that mountain coming together. So while it is still wet, we're going to be getting the raw umber ready. So this one is going to be closer to a cream consistency because we want to be adding a little bit more of that darkness to that cliff edge. Again, making sure that it's a little bit more rough so that it has more of that natural look to it. You can see I'm just blending it in a little bit with the blue-gray so that it has a little bit more of that blurry line. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to come in with the detail in a little bit. So now I'm just going to do some swatches because I want to remember the colors I've used for the future. So I actually made this mountain painting for my best friend's invitation for her wedding. So I'm very touched that she wants me to do something like this, and I thought I would share how I actually made the mountain for it. So I hope you guys like this video. It's very sentimental to me now to see it being painted again. So let me know what you do with your mountain, and I hope that you've learned something. I think it's something very special about painting nature, and it's not something that I would say comes easy to me with the landscapes and how simple it is, in my opinion. I kind of overcomplicate things and it ends up making it a little bit of a mess, but I tried really hard with this one to capture its simplicity, which also included a lot of letting it dry, so that's why I did those swatches as well. Now we're going back in with those colors. So once it's all dry, we're going to add that yellow ochre back on the light part and really just letting the brush do the work. You can see I'm probably being a little bit too much of a perfectionist here, and I am working on it, trust me, to make it a little bit more looser. But you can see when I start to loosen up a little bit more, it looks a lot more realistic than when I'm trying too hard. So definitely a lesson learned for this one. And you can see just adding some details where the shadows would naturally be on this side. Then with the raw umber, I'm going in on the opposite side by adding a little bit more of that dimension to the cliff edge. It has to be quite of a rough finish, otherwise I think it looks a little bit too artificial in my opinion. Again, focusing on that shadow side with the raw umber to create that definition there. And again, using those loose brush strokes to really create that natural effect. You can start to see when you add these colors, it really comes together. And yeah, I really like it. So now the blue-gray is just to add a little bit more depth to this mountain. I can see it already coming together. Again, highlighting it on the cliff edge to create that sharp point of a shadow. And using that wet on wet technique just to let it seep into that raw umber. We don't want it to be too perfect. We just want to capture that shadow detail. And now to make sure that everything is harmonized, I'm adding a more dilute wash of the blue-gray onto that highlighted side just to make sure that it is not too jarring from the light to the shade. Again, it's going to dry a lot lighter, so we want to be working it in to sort of get an idea of how we want it to look towards the end. I would say this is when it starts to come together. So you can see here I'm using the tip of my brush to create those really sharp points that you would naturally see on the mountain. It is the best if you do this with a wet on dry, but I am very lazy and impatient, so I didn't wait for it to dry. But honestly, you'll get the best effect when it is completely dry because you can make sure that it doesn't bleed out too much. So you can see here I am adding some more of that yellow ochre, but I mixed a little bit with raw umber just to make it a little bit darker to highlight all those effects. So again, varying my brush stroke pattern to make things a little bit more interesting, and you can see it starting to come together a bit more now. And so I just keep doing this repetitively until I find that I reach a point where there's enough detail to capture what I like for this. So this is the finished product, and I hope you enjoy.